Hey everybody, the Miss Peg here, getting ready to show you the next portion of our FSA Algebra 1 EOC review. I want to jump right into it. If you are following along, then you probably have already printed out these worksheets, and if you have just joined us, you can find the link in the description below, copy and paste into your URL there, and you can find this, print it out, practice along with us. We're trying to get a lot of help to pass this Algebra 1 end of course exam. Okay, so we are looking at the skill today called, what I call REI 2.3. This one here, again, every skill that we've talked about has different levels of understanding. So you want to try to understand at a level 2, and once you master it, go to a level 3, then to a level 4, and a level 5. So we got to level up, you guys, okay? A lot of the exam questions are going to fall in between levels 3 and 4. There'll only be a couple here in the 2 and a couple in the 5. So if you want to master all of the ones in the middle, you can do that by gaining as many skills as possible today. All right, so let me clear the screen and grab my marker. Let me scroll up just a little bit for you. Number 1 here has says solve for x. And then I see all of this work right here. And I'm not intimidated by that at all because I know the rules for equations. So let's first, off to the side, write down the rules for equations. First thing here I see, I'm going to have to do my distributive property. All right, so I'm going to put, whoops, distribute. Distribute, boom. This can be a first step in many questions on your algebra EOC because they're not just going to give you like x plus 5 equals 12. They're going to give you things to know. Do you know the rules and what to do? All right. So with this distributive property here, I'm going to just distribute that 3. So 3, and we're using multiplication when we distribute. 3 times 2 is 6, and the x comes along for the ride because 2x 3 times is 6x. 2x, 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 2, 4, 6x. Okay? And then here I have what might look to some people like 3 times 1, but that is wrong. Because we always have to take note of what is the sign in front of the number. And this is a negative. So 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. So the way I write that down is I just put negative 3, which by default becomes 6x minus 3. And that's all I'm doing in step 1, was I was going to distribute. I'm going to bring down everything else and keep organized. So I brought down the rest, oops, let me go back here. I brought down the rest of the information, so that way I am keeping neat on the page. A lot of students have problems because it's so messy. A lot of students have problems because they just don't keep their work in order. So anytime you have opportunity to use a lined paper, do that so you can write straight on the lines. Otherwise, make it a point to stay nice and neat and in order. Okay, so I'm done with this whole line. I like to cross stuff out as I go, so I know I don't have to go back to that. I completely finished it. I only have to look at this now. So the first thing I notice is here's my equal sign. All right, I'm going to bring down that equal sign and see what needs to happen. Well, the first thing I see, I can combine anything that needs to be combined. So I'm going to put that over here. Combine like terms. I abbreviate a lot, okay? So I am a math teacher, not an English teacher. You can spell as best as you can for me. You can abbreviate things. I do not mind, okay? So here I have negative 3 minus 10. This is an example of something that trips students up all the time. So negative 3 minus 10 means I went down 3 and then I went down another 10. So down 3, down 10 again. How far down did I go? I went down 13 total. So I put negative 13. If you have a calculator at this point on an exam, put it in the calculator. Make great use of that calculator, okay? And then again, I'm just going to bring down everything because I only want to work on one step at a time, okay? One step at a time. Great. So the next thing I have to do is see, we're still going to keep combining like terms again. So we're going to combine like terms until we're ready to do inverse operation. Here, I notice that I have an x on the left side of the equation, and I have an x on the right side of the equation. Those have to come together because we can only solve for one x. We can't solve for both of them. They are the same. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to get one guy over to the other side. So we have to make a decision. Do I want to subtract the 6x, or do I want to subtract the 5x? I say subtract because they're both positive. I'm going to choose to subtract 5x, and I'm going to do it on both sides because that's my equation rules, because this cancels out, and it's easier for me to do 6 minus 5 because I know 6 minus 5 is 1. So I have 1x, and that was that step. All right, bring everything else down. I'm going to bring down my minus 13, and I'm going to bring down my leftover 8 over here. Now, if you had done the other way and you had done minus 6x on both sides, they would have canceled out over on the left, and you would have had positive 5 minus 6. You would have had negative 1x on the right-hand side of that equation. I like to not use negatives whenever possible, so that's why I chose to bring the 5 over. So it's some thinking you can do in advance. It really doesn't matter which way, you just follow the same rules regardless. Okay, so if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this entire line over here and rewrite it. 1x minus 13 equals 8, so that I have some more space to write. All right, so now we are in great shape. We're left with a two-step equation here, and I always say see what needs to go. Here is where I'm going to box the variable. And I say that because I like to put a box here to see this is what I'm trying to solve for. At the end of the day, I want to have x equals. This x wants to be isolated, okay? So in order to do that, I have to see what's going on. Well, this 1 is stuck to the x, it's just the coefficient of x. Stuck together, save it for later. Now, that minus 13, though, see I'm combining this over here on this side, but because it is equal, I have to do inverse operation. Inverse is like the word reverse. It's going backwards or the opposite direction. And so if I have minus 13, I'm going to do the opposite, which would be plus 13. And whatever I do on one side, again, I do to the opposite side or other side. Well, the inverse or the opposites always cancel each other out. That's good news for us. And we're left with just the 1x. Now you have 8 plus 13, which is 21. All right, so 1x equals 21. Well, 1x is the same as x. If you don't believe me, then you can go ahead and divide by that 1. Stuck together, divide it out. Stuck together, divide it out. So if you have multiplying going on, division is the opposite, the reverse or the inverse operation. In this example, I don't bother because I know that x and 1x are the same. Whenever you see a variable by itself, you can just assume it to be a 1. I write it in when I do the work because I find that students, maybe like yourself or others that you know, like to write in that 1 because they feel comfortable having a coefficient or a number in front of that variable. So does this match any of our answers? It sure does. Answer choice D. All right, answer choice D. So that was a fairly complicated example, but wait, there's more. It gets more complicated. So when we take a look at number 2, 2 has a lot of distributed property going on. So we're going to have to stay super organized here. So let's see. Number 2, we're going to come up, we're going to say, I'm going to just run through. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times 5 is 20, and it's a positive 20. I know that because this is just 4 times 5. Positive 20, so I put plus 20. Equals, now I have a 3x, because 3 times x is 3x. Then I have 3 times, look at this one, negative 2, not just 2. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. So the way that I write that is I put minus 6. Okay? Now I'm going to put minus. So here's what I got. Watch, this is crazy. Remember, sign is in front of the number. Look what we got. Negative 2 times x. All right, let me move this over. Good. Negative 2 times x is going to be negative 2x. So I'm going to put negative 2x, and where I really want to pay attention is going to be over here. Where I really want to pay attention is going to be over here when I have negative 2 times 2. So sometimes you just want to put in and say, oh, it's 4, and put down plus 4. But it's not plus 4. It's going to be negative 2, and a negative and a positive when you multiply is a negative, so it's negative 4. So that's why these are the most tricky. You want to be sure you're paying attention to the sign, and the sign is always right in front of the number if you're not sure. So again, I'm going to cross out that line. I did all my distributing as my first part. If you remember from question 1, next we have to start combining the terms that are alike. We're going to start on each side, and then we're going to start combining terms alike across the equal sign. So over here on the right, on the left, I have 4x plus 20. Neither of those are alike because 4 has the variable x, 20 is a constant. It has no variable. But over here on the right side of the equation, I have 3x that can go with negative 2x. So let's start there. 3x, and look, minus 2x because the sign is in front. 3 minus 2 is 1, and they both have an x. Now also this minus 6 minus 4. That's very similar to what we saw in the last problem where we had minus 3 and minus 10. Minus stays minus. That's how I like to teach it in the classroom. So you keep going in the negative direction, and so 6 and 4 together is going to go minus 10. Okay? Here I'm just going to bring down what was there, 4x plus 20. So we did all of our combining like terms on the left and on the right. Now we have to start moving over the equal sign. Whenever you want to move over the equal sign, you have to use inverse operation that we spoke about in problem number 1, doing the opposite. So I will line up the ones that make sense for each other. Well, let me deal with this 4x and 1x. Well, I can bring the 4 over or I can bring the 1 over. I'm going to bring the 1 over because it makes the most sense because I'm going to minus 1x on both sides. I'm going to put my answers off to the side over here so I have more room. Well, 4x minus 1x is going to leave me with 3x because 4 minus 1 is 3. All right, did that. The other thing that I want to do is I want to take this 20 and I want to move it to the other side. So if I have positive 20, I'm going to do the opposite, which would be like a negative 20 or minus 20. So I'm going to put minus 20 here, and whatever I do on one side, I do to the other side, minus 20. Luckily, the left side cancels out. Now, again, that situation, minus 10, minus 20. Very similar to the minus 6 and minus 4 we just saw. Same thing as the minus 3, minus 10 we saw in problem 1. Negative, negative stays negative. So negative 10 and then a negative 20 is going to become negative 30. That's on the right-hand side of the equation. So now I have 3x equals 30. Let me move this out of here for you so it doesn't confuse you at all. Boom. 3x equals negative 30. Well, you guys, this got easy really fast because all we have to do now is, what do you think? If I have an x here and my coefficient is 3, those are stuck together. Stuck together means they're being multiplied, and the opposite of multiply is divide. So I'm going to put divide by 3. You're going to divide by whatever in front of that coefficient, whatever is in front of that variable, and our coefficient here is 3. So whatever you do to one side, remember, you're going to do to the other side, just like we did with the minus 20, with the minus 1x, but now we're just talking about dividing instead of subtracting. These cancel out, and I'm left with x equals negative 30 divided by 3. The first thing that screams out to me is that one is negative and one is positive. If they're not the same sign, you're doing multiply, divide, it's going to be a negative answer. So I know my answer is negative. Boom. This is good news because look at here, all my answer choices are negative. Okay? Now I have to know what is 30 divided by 3. How many times does 3 go into 30? Well, that's 10 because 10 times 3 is 30. So I have answer choice D again. Look at that. All right, cool. So what we're going to do, we're going to stop there and let you absorb that information. And we're going to go on to some of the problems coming up are inequalities where it's going to be greater than or less than. I'm going to put that in a separate next video. But I don't want to make these videos too long. You can't absorb that much information at a time. So I hope that helps. Remember to like or subscribe, share with your friends, and definitely try your best. Be sure to make it a priority to take time to memorize, learn, practice the rules so that you can ace your exam and pass and graduate. All right, that's all for me. See you soon.